The sirens wailed across the black steel corridors of the Arcadia. Red lights strobed overhead, casting sharp shadows against the crew's frantic faces. Captain Mira Sato stormed into the bridge, her boots hammering the floor like gunshots. "Status!" she barked. Commander Reyes spun from his console, face pale. "Final council verdict confirmed. Humanity's expulsion is official. No appeals." The words settled like a funeral bell. Around the bridge, no one spoke. Outside the viewport, the council's fleet hovered in brutal silence, ivory ships gleaming like the fangs of a god. Their message was clear: leave. Or be destroyed. Myra's hands curled into fists. She stared at the council's flagship, a monstrous leviathan of glass and gold, and felt a surge of rage hotter than the twin suns burning behind it. "They want to erase us," she said, voice low. "They want to pretend we never mattered." Reyes swallowed. "Orders?" Myra's jaw tightened. For years, humanity had bent the knee, begging for scraps, concessions, relevance. And what had it earned them? Exile. Shame. Death sentences masked as diplomacy? "No orders," she said coldly. "Only one choice. We survive. On our terms." The Arcadia shuddered as the council fleet powered their weapons, the air thrumming with invisible violence. Mira turned to her crew. Young. Scared. Waiting for her to falter. She didn't. "Helm," she snapped. "Plot a course out of this system. Somewhere they won't find us." The pilot hesitated. "Captain, they'll chase us." Mira allowed herself a grim smile. "Then we make damn sure we're faster." The engines roared to life. The ship lurched forward, slipping through the council blockade. Warning shots streaked past like comets, too close. One grazed the starboard wing, sending sparks and debris into the void. Inside, the crew gripped their stations, white-knuckled but silent. Determined. "Shields holding," Reyes muttered, checking his screen. "Barely." Mira leaned over his shoulder, studying the star map. "There," she said, tapping a dark, empty patch of space. "Sector Epsilon 9. No records. No patrols." The pilot's fingers flew across the controls. "Locked in. Punching it." The Arcadia surged into faster than light, the stars outside stretching into silver lines. For a moment, the bridge was bathed in an eerie, weightless calm. The only sound was the hum of the jump drive, steady as a heartbeat. Mira closed her eyes. Let herself feel the moment, the break from chains centuries old. A whisper broke the silence. "Captain," said Reyes, voice tight. "Incoming transmission. Direct hail, from the council." Myra's eyes snapped open. On screen, a figure materialized, High Chancellor Velerin. Cloaked in white, haloed by a ring of stars. Her expression was cold marble. "You've made a mistake, Captain Sato," Velerin said. Her voice was velvet-wrapped steel. "Defiance will not be tolerated." Mira stepped forward, her face inches from the flickering image. "We begged for a place," Mira said. "We earned our right among the stars. You refused." Velerin's lips curled in a faint, pitying smile. "Your kind is volatile. Primitive. Dangerous. This is mercy." Myra's heart pounded. Mercy? Banishment was mercy? "No," she said quietly. "This is cowardice." Velerin's image flickered, voice dropping to a final decree. "Run if you must. It will not save you. The galaxy forgets those who have no home." The screen snapped to black. For a long moment, no one moved. Mira turned back to her crew. Their faces had changed. No longer just fear, something else burned there now. Anger. Resolve. She drew a breath. Spoke low but steady. "Then we'll make a new home," she said. "One they'll never forget." The stars outside blurred as the Arcadia hurtled deeper into uncharted darkness. Every second pulled them farther from everything they had ever known, and closer to something terrifyingly new. Freedom. "Prep long-range scanners," Mira ordered. "We find a system. A planet. Something. We start again. The navigator hesitated. Captain, even if we find one, we're not settlers. We're soldiers. Engineers. Refugees. Mira turned, her gaze cutting through the doubts. Then we learn, she said. We adapt. We survive. Like we always have. A ripple moved through the crew, quiet but unmistakable. The first breath of something that had been crushed out of them long ago, hope. A beeping alarm interrupted the moment. Contacts, Reyes said sharply. Multiple signatures dropping out of FTL. They're following us. Mira moved fast. Battle stations. Divert all power to shields. Helm, evasive maneuvers. The ship vibrated under the strain as the Council fleet closed in, tiny against the endless black, yet vast enough to annihilate them in seconds. We can't outrun them, Reyes muttered. Not like this. Myra's mind raced. Options, none good. One glimmer, a nearby neutron star, gravity well unstable but masking their energy signature. A brutal choice. She pointed at the swirling mass on the map. There. Dive toward the star. The pilot stared. We'll burn up. Better a chance at freedom, Mira said, than a clean execution. The Arcadia veered hard, engine screaming against physics itself, throwing the crew sideways. The Council ships hesitated, just long enough. We're losing hull integrity, Reyes shouted. Mira gritted her teeth. Hold it. Just a few seconds more. The ship plummeted closer to the neutron star, the light outside turning from blue to violent purple. Radiation alarms blared. Metal groaned. Then silence. The pursuing ships peeled off, unwilling to risk annihilation. Cowards cloaked in bureaucracy. Mira slumped back in her chair, sweat cooling on her skin. Status? The pilot coughed. Alive. Barely. Mira let a rare, fierce grin cross her face. Then that's enough. The crew looked at each other, exhausted, battered, but alive. Against all odds. They had been banished. Now they would rise. The stars ahead shimmered, endless and unclaimed. Mira whispered to herself, to all of them. This is just the beginning. The Arcadia drifted through the dark sea of Sector Epsilon 9. Stars hung like frozen fire around them, 1,000 silent witnesses to their exile. Inside the ship, the air was tense, brittle. Supplies ran low. Tempers frayed. Mira stood before the assembled senior crew in the dim-lit war room. Holograms of nearby star systems flickered and twitched around them. We're not alone out here, Reyes said, voice rough. Long-range scanners picked up unknown activity. Ships. Signals we can't decode. Mira folded her arms. Council? Reyes shook his head. Different tech. Older. Cruder. Maybe pirates. The words settled like a toxin. Myra's mind raced. They were vulnerable, half their systems fried from the neutron dive, shields barely functional, weapons offline. She straightened. We find a place to land. Hide. Repair. Reyes shifted uneasily. And if we're already being hunted? Myra's eyes hardened. Then we fight. The crew dispersed, faces grim. Fear gnawed at them all, but for Mira, it was an old companion. In her quarters, Mira stared at the cracked photograph tucked into her locker, a forgotten Earth skyline, twin moons rising behind it. A relic from a home long dead. Her comms buzzed. Captain, Reyes' voice came through. You need to see this. Mira moved fast to the bridge. On the main screen floated a small, battered planet, gray clouds swirling over dark oceans, jagged continents untouched by cities or lights. Life signs? She asked. The science officer, Lieutenant Arlen, shook his head. Minimal. Microbial at best. No intelligent life detected. Perfect for concealment. Mira studied the planet, feeling its emptiness press against her like a weight. This is it, she said. Set course. The Arcadia descended through turbulent atmosphere, the ship shuddering against storms and magnetic interference. Thunder cracked outside. Lightning illuminated jagged mountain ranges stretching beyond sight. They touched down on a rocky plateau surrounded by mist and endless darkness. Mira stood at the cargo ramp as it groaned open, cold air biting at her skin. A landscape of black stone and howling winds greeted them, beautiful in its cruelty. She smiled grimly. It felt like home. Repairs began immediately. Crews worked in shifts, patching hull breaches, rerouting power grids, salvaging what they could. The ship became a hive of urgent motion. Hope flickered. Until it broke. 3 days later, a distant boom shook the ground. Mira sprinted to the perimeter, Reyes close behind. In the valley below, fire bloomed, orange against the gray. Through the smoke, dark shapes moved, ships smaller than council vessels, but bristling with weapons. Pirates. Mira gritted her teeth. Of course. How did they find us? Reyes growled. They were already here, Mira said bitterly. We landed in their backyard. A low hum vibrated the ground. Dropships peeled off from the pirate flotilla, racing toward their position. Shields? Mira demanded. Still down, Reyes snapped. We're exposed. Myra's mind sharpened. No time to fortify. No chance to run. Rally every able body, she ordered. Arm everyone. We hold them here. Reyes hesitated. Captain, half the crew are engineers, medics, kids. They'll die faster unarmed. She cut in. Move. As Reyes barked orders into his calm, Mira turned back to the rising fire on the horizon. She remembered something her father once said during the old riots on Europa. When they back you into a corner, show them your teeth. She intended to. The pirates came at dusk. Black-armored faces hidden behind cracked visors, weapons glinting under the blood-red sky. They moved like a tide of hunger and desperation. Mira crouched behind the wreckage of a scout vehicle, rifle tight against her shoulder. Around her, her crew, their crew, waited, breath misting in the cold air. The first shots rang out, short, savage bursts. Sparks and screams filled the air. Mira rose, firing in sharp, controlled bursts. She dropped one pirate, then another, but for each that fell, more surged forward. We're being flanked! Reyes shouted over the gunfire. Mira spun to see another wave cresting the ridge behind them. Too many. She clicked her comm. Fall back to the ship. Regroup. Bullets and plasma scorched the ground as the crew retreated in a broken line, dragging the wounded. Mira covered them, teeth bared, heart hammering. She felt the ground quake as pirate tanks, ancient but lethal, rumbled into view. They had minutes. Maybe less. At the ship, Mira shoved Reyes toward the hatch. Seal it behind me. He stared at her, horror dawning. You're not. I'll buy you time, she said simply. Before he could argue, she slammed the button, sealing the ramp. Alone now, Mira turned to face the oncoming tide. She set her last charge against the base of a shattered cliff, the blinking red light small against the vast night. The tanks rumbled closer. Mira triggered the detonator. The explosion roared, a raw scream of rock and fire. The cliffside collapsed, burying the tanks in a wave of stone and dust. Silence fell. Mira stood panting, the world spinning around her. Her side bled from a glancing shot she hadn't even felt. Through the smoke, the remaining pirates hesitated, scattered, leaderless. From the ship's upper deck, gunfire erupted, precise, coordinated. Mira smiled through bloodied lips. Reyes was leading the counter-assault. The crew surged forward, retaking ground inch by inch. Mira staggered back toward the ship, legs trembling, lungs burning. Reyes met her halfway, grabbing her arm. You crazy stubborn, he began, voice breaking. Mira managed a ragged laugh. Told you. We survive. The pirates fled into the night, their ships retreating under sporadic fire. Victory was theirs, but at a cost. Mira limped through the shattered defenses, counting the wounded, the dead. Each face seared itself into her memory. Inside, the ship felt hollow, bruised. In the med bay, Mira stitched her own wound while listening to the low hum of sorrow around her. They had won. But something inside had cracked. They weren't settlers anymore. They were warriors now. Forged by betrayal. Tempered by blood. Mira stared out at the ruined landscape beyond the med bay window. A storm gathered on the horizon. She welcomed it. The fires from the battle still smoldered when the first crack appeared. It started small, an argument over rationing. Then a missing engine part. Whispers of sabotage crept through the ship's battered halls like smoke through broken walls. Mira sat in the darkened command room, eyes fixed on the surveillance feeds. Tension had become a living thing aboard the Arcadia, curling into every breath, every glance. Reyes entered quietly, his uniform stained with oil and blood. "We have a problem," he said without preamble. Mira didn't turn. "I know." Reyes hesitated. "Worse than you think." He tossed a day pad onto the table. It showed logs, encrypted transmissions sent off-world. Unauthorized. Myra's stomach tightened. "Who?" Reyes' face hardened. "Lieutenant Arlen." Shock rippled through her. Arlen, the calm scientist who had found this planet, who had sworn loyalty under the Council's shadow. "Proof?" she asked quietly. "Intercepted. He's been contacting them." Mira closed her eyes. She tasted betrayal like metal on her tongue. Reyes leaned closer. "He gave our location away." Outside the viewport, twin moons bathed the ruined land in cold silver light. Somewhere out there, unseen ships were coming. And this time, they would not hesitate. The crew gathered in the central bay, restless, murmuring. The wounded leaned against crates. Engineers clutched makeshift weapons. Fear hung heavy. Mira stepped up onto a loading ramp, her voice cutting through the noise. "We have a traitor among us," she said, each word falling like a hammer blow. "Lieutenant Arlen contacted unknown forces. He risked all our lives." Gasps and angry shouts echoed around the bay. Mira lifted a hand for silence. Arlen stood at the center, hands bound, eyes burning with a strange, brittle fire. "I did what had to be done," he snapped. "You don't understand, Captain. We can't survive alone out here. They promised protection." Mira descended slowly, each step deliberate. "Protection?" she repeated, voice sharp. "From who?" Arlen's face twisted. "From the real enemy. You think the Council was the worst? They're nothing compared to what's coming. Humanity has no chance without allies." Mira stopped inches from him, searching his face for the man she once trusted. "Allies who demand betrayal," she said. "At the cost of our freedom." Arlen lifted his chin. "At least it's survival." Mira felt the weight of every life aboard pressing down on her. "We are not cowards," she said. "We don't trade loyalty for safety." The crowd erupted into cheers, raw and broken. Mira drew her sidearm. For a moment, the world froze, balanced on the edge of a breath. Then she lowered it. "Lock him up," she ordered. "We'll deal with him later." Reyes dragged Arlen away. The scientist didn't resist, but his final words slithered through the air. "They're already here." Hours later, the scanners picked up the approaching fleet, sleeker, deadlier than pirates. No insignia. No demands. Predators. The Arcadia had no chance against them, not in her current state. Mira stared at the tactical display, every path closing like a noose. "Options?" she asked. Reyes rubbed his temples. "None. We can't outrun them. Can't outgun them." Myra's gaze drifted to the distant mountains, shrouded in electric mist. Strange signals had pulsed from that direction since landing, ignored until now. "What about the ruins?" she asked. Reyes blinked. "The old readings? It's just noise." "Maybe," Mira said. "Or maybe it's something they don't expect." Reyes caught her meaning. His eyes widened. "A trap." Mira nodded. "We lead them there. Make the ruins fight for us." It was a mad plan. But madness was all they had left. The crew moved like ghosts through the twilight, stripping the Arcadia of everything useful. Ammunition, medical supplies, power cores. Anything they couldn't carry, they rigged with explosives. Mira stood before the ship one last time, her hand resting on the battered hull. "You carried us this far," she whispered. "Thank you." Then she turned away, leading her people into the mist. Behind them, the Arcadia waited like a wounded beast, bait for the trap to come. The ruins rose from the mists like broken teeth, cyclopean structures of black stone, humming with ancient energy. The ground itself seemed to pulse underfoot. Mira positioned the crew among the shattered spires, weapons ready. The air vibrated with the oncoming storm. "They're here," Reyes said, voice low. Mira tightened her grip on her rifle. Ships descended in formation, sleek beasts of war bristling with weapons. Drop ships disgorged soldiers in gleaming armor, their faces hidden behind mirrored masks. The enemy moved with terrifying precision, sweeping through the ruins. Mira waited until the last possible moment. Now! Her crew triggered the charges buried along the outer edges of the ruins. Stone monoliths collapsed, sending shockwaves through the enemy ranks. Confusion rippled. From the shadows, humanity struck. Bullets, plasma bolts, homemade explosives. They fought with the fury of the damned. Mira led from the front, weaving between fallen columns, firing, moving, never stopping. Around her, her people fought like giants. Still, it wasn't enough. The enemy adapted too quickly, pushing them back toward the heart of the ruins. Mira ducked behind a shattered obelisk, heart hammering. They were losing. Across the field, she saw Reyes pinned down, bleeding. She had a choice: fall back and live, or charge forward and die. Mira chose. She rose, sprinting through the hail of fire, dragging Reyes behind a wall. "Stupid!" he gasped, blood bubbling at his lips. "Family doesn't leave family," she snarled. Explosions shook the ground. The ancient ruins responded, energy pulses igniting dormant machines buried deep underground. Beams of searing light erupted from the ground, tearing into the sky, vaporizing enemy ships in midair. The attackers faltered. Mira seized the moment. "Push!" she roared. The crew surged forward one final time, overwhelming the stunned enemy. It ended not with a victory cry, but with silence. The battlefield lay littered with wreckage, bodies, shattered dreams. Mira staggered through the smoke, Reyes leaning heavily against her. They had survived. But survival had a cost. Too many missing. Too many graves unmarked. Mira stood atop the tallest ruin, looking out over the broken land. A single thought burned in her mind. If this was the price of freedom, so be it. The stars above glittered cold and indifferent. But Mira Sato, human, flawed, relentless, raised her head and dared to meet their gaze. "We're still here," she whispered. "And we're not done!" The ruins were silent now, soaked in ash and memory. In the aftermath, the crew buried their dead beneath cairns of black stone. There were no grand speeches, no hymns, only the sound of rocks stacking upon rocks, a language of grief older than words. Mira stood alone at the edge of the battlefield, the wind tugging at her torn jacket. In the distance, the broken remains of the enemy's ships smoldered like dying suns. But victory felt hollow. Reyes approached, limping but alive. His arm was bandaged, his face pale. "They'll come again," he said quietly. Mira didn't look at him. "I know." He shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe it's time we stopped running." She turned, eyes steady. "We're not running. We're building." Behind her, the crew gathered around makeshift fires, patching armor, cleaning weapons, whispering plans. They weren't survivors anymore. They were something else. Mira tilted her head toward the darkened sky. "It's time we answered back." Reyes frowned. "With what army?" "We're barely standing." Mira smiled, a fierce, sharp thing. "With the only thing that ever mattered." Reyes waited. "Our will." It took weeks to rebuild. The Arcadia was unsalvageable, but its heart, the main reactor, the life support cores, the archives, were intact. They tore the old ship apart piece by piece, repurposing every wire, every panel. They built upward, outward, stone and metal rising into a fortress city forged from wreckage and ambition. They called it New Bastion. The ruins became part of it, ancient technology humming beneath their feet, offering defenses even the Council had never seen. It was rough, ugly, beautiful. A statement carved into the bones of a forgotten world: humanity endures. Every day, more signals crackled through the void. Other human ships, fugitives, outcasts, wanderers who had heard rumors of a place where the Council's word meant nothing. They came. Scarred, broken, hungry, but alive. Mira stood atop the highest tower, watching the lights of New Bastion flicker into life against the endless dark. This was how legends were born, not from grand conquests, but from stubborn hope. A new message pulsed from their long-range transmitters, broadcast across every channel. We are humanity. We are free. Join us, or stand aside. It didn't take long for the Council to respond. Their fleet arrived in full force, hundreds of ships, gleaming and cold, like a tidal wave of inevitability. Mira stood before the hastily formed Council of Bastion, engineers, soldiers, scientists, civilians, all looking to her. We can't win a war, someone said, voice shaking. Mira didn't deny it. But we can win a future, she said. Silence settled. She laid out the plan, risky, desperate, the only real chance they had. Every face in the room hardened. No one refused. The sky burned as the Council fleet descended. Mira stood on the outer wall, Reyes beside her, both clad in scavenged armor. Cannons hidden in the ruins rotated toward the sky. Energy shields, ancient and experimental, shimmered into place. The first salvo came at dawn, a rain of plasma and metal. The shields held barely. Mira activated the comms, broadcasting on an open frequency. This is Captain Mira Sato of New Bastion. We will not yield. We will not kneel. Static answered. Then a cold voice, High Chancellor Velerin herself. You've made your choice, Captain, she said. Prepare to be forgotten. Mira smiled grimly. We were forgotten long ago. Now we remember ourselves. She cut the line. The battle began. It wasn't a battle. It was a storm. Council ships rained fire from the heavens, carving trenches into the ground. New Bastion's defenses answered with brutal efficiency, using the ruins' ancient weaponry to tear through hulls like paper. Mira led from the walls, rifle flashing, barking orders, rallying the defenders. Every inch of ground was paid for in blood. Reyes held the east barricade until it collapsed, then fought through the wreckage with a broken arm and a knife. Engineers turned maintenance bots into suicide drones, ramming enemy walkers with explosive payloads. Children carried ammunition to the front lines. No one surrendered. Hours bled into each other. The Council, unprepared for such resistance, began to falter. Mira seized the moment. She led a strike team through the ruins' old tunnels, emerging behind enemy lines. They sabotaged command ships, collapsed landing pads, turned the battlefield into chaos. At the height of the carnage, Mira confronted Velerin herself. The Chancellor stood atop her personal command carrier, guarded by mechanized soldiers. Mira climbed the wreckage, battered and bloodied, rifle hanging useless from a shattered arm. Velerin raised an eyebrow. You think you've won? Mira shook her head slowly. This isn't about winning, she said. It's about being unbreakable. Velerin sneered. Foolish pride. Mira smiled through the pain. Pride didn't build this. She detonated the charges hidden within the ruins' core. A wave of raw energy ripped through the battlefield, disabling ships, frying electronics, leveling the Council's front line without touching New Bastion's ancient shields. Velerin's carrier exploded in a bloom of fire. The fleet panicked, retreating in scattered clusters. The sky cleared. New Bastion still stood. Humanity still stood. Later, after the fires died, Mira limped through the broken streets. Survivors cheered as she passed, voices hoarse, faces shining with fierce, stubborn light. Reyes found her at the memorial wall, where names of the fallen had been carved into the black stone. "We should be dead," he said softly. Mira traced the names with trembling fingers. "But we're not," she whispered. Reyes nodded. "We're legends now." Mira turned to the growing city beyond. No banners flew. No trumpets sounded. But history had already shifted. Humanity, cast out, abandoned, betrayed, had built a home no council could erase. And the stars themselves would remember. Mira lifted her eyes to the heavens, her heart battered but undefeated. "We were banished," she said quietly, the wind stealing the words into the sky. "But we became something greater. A spark. A fire. A legend."